Alright, to get a YouTube XML feed into Tines, you really just need one HTTP request action per YouTube channel you want to subscribe to. I'm going to show a way to consolidate them. To do that, I'm also going to grab an event transform action and leave it in message only mode. I'm going to change the payload to an array. Now that I have an array, I can change this to add the YouTube URLs. So in order to get the YouTube channel XML feed, you go to the YouTube channel page. Once you're on the YouTube channel page for the channel you want to subscribe to, open up the inspector. Once the inspector is open up the Find dialog. You can do this on Windows by Control F. In the Find dialog, type in RSS. Once you type in RSS, it should highlight you with the RSS XML feed link. Right-click on this element and copy link address. If you post this in your browser search bar, you can view the feed for this. This link that you copied is also the same one that you're going to take back to your Tines story. Back in your Tines story, paste that feed back into your message transform payload for the URL. This next part is optional, but I like to do it to stay organized. I add another element to this and name it source, and then I type in where the source came from. So now I have my first channel subscription, I can add another one. I'm going to go back to the browser and go to a different YouTube channel. Again, once on the channel, open up the inspector, open up the find, type in RSS. Right click, copy link address, go back to the Tines story. Gonna go ahead and add another element, change it to an object, and again, specify the URL and the source. So now I have 2 YouTube channels I'm going to be subscribing to. I'm going to rename my actions so that I can keep track of them better. The next step is to bring in an event transform and set it to explode mode. This is so that we can explode the multiple URL feeds. The path is just going to be the YouTube XML feeds action. You can specify a custom to fill, but I'm just going to leave it as individual item. The limit will be how many events you want to explode in total each time. Leaving this at 500 will be more than enough for me because my combined feeds will not exceed 500 items and I want to make sure that I get all the items in the feed. Now I can go ahead and link this to the HTTP request action. I'm going to go ahead and change this name as well. The URL that you're going to use is going to be the URL supplied from your explode action. I just realized that I made a typo in the get feed request. In here I was not specifying the right path. The right path would have been the name of the action and the key of the action. The content type will be XML and the method get. We will not need to supply a payload with this get request. The next step is to include a trigger action to check if there's an entry in the feed. I'm going to use the Tines includes function, set the target to be the feed, check if the feed has an entry value. The requirements, I'm just going to check if the formula is true. The reason I do this is if I try to explode a feed that doesn't have any entries, I will run into an error in my Tines story, so I want to make sure that there is an entry for feeds first. The next step is to explode the feed. You can do that by bringing an event transform action and setting it to explode mode. The path is going to be the getFeed.body.feed.entry action. While editing, I realized I made a fatal flaw in my story. With the explode feed action, if there's only one entry in the feed, this explode will not work, and explode only works on an array. There's 2 quick ways to fix this. The first is to bring in another trigger action and have this check if the feed entry is an array. So to do this, you'll take the trigger action from the check if the entry is included, put into the trigger action for the array type, and then put the true value back into your explode feed. The disadvantage to this is you have to take the no match from the trigger check for the array and put this branch into another parse event. This is because your event transform parse is expecting to parse on the explode feed action, which will no longer be happening since you'll be parsing just a single event. The other method, which is what I prefer, is you can actually just modify your explode feed path. To do this, you'll just go back to the normal, and instead of having your explode feed be the get feed body feed entry path, you can modify it to include the trigger check. How this looks like is this. You'll have an if function covering the entire formula. We'll have the trigger check that if the type is equal to an array, we'll return the path that we're using before. If it's not, we'll return the path that we're using before, but cast it as an array. This way, an array will always be supplied to the explode feed. So now in my case, since I have 2 different actions, I'll just relink to the new action. I'm just going to leave the 2 filled as default again, but the limit for purposes of testing I'm going to limit to 10. In a normal situation, you want to leave your limit to the most events that you want to explode to. I also need to go back and change the name so I have better organization. Now that we are exploding the feeds, we want to make sure that we are deduplicating so that we don't get repeat events. In the event transform action, you can set the mode to deduplicate. The path you're going to specify is the new explode path. I also want to make sure that I'm exploding based on a unique variable. This variable that I'm going to choose is going to be the title of the event. The lookback is the number of past events to examine for uniqueness. I'm going to make this a larger number just so I make sure I deduplicate as much as I can. Don't forget to change the title of the action. Now that's set, we can test this to see how it works. As you can see, we had a successful run and it looks like it's working properly. We can view the events to see what it looks like. Now that you can see what kind of data you're getting, you can choose which values you want to retrieve and parse. I already know what kind of data I'm going to get, so I'm going to go ahead and start doing that in a new event transform. In the builder, I'm going to parse my data. While you're in the builder view, remember you can check the result in the bottom right of your formula. This form time field I'm setting from the time that the video was updated, but formatting it to my time zone. You can see the result here in the bottom. Now that you have your formatting set, technically the last step is to send this data to your preferred source. In my case, I'm going to be using a Discord webhook URL, so I'll need to add a throttle, as well as an HTTP request sending to that webhook. I already have a webhook URL set up for testing, so I'm just going to reuse this one. In the payload builder, I need to change this to format to Discord standards. Just for sending normal text content, you just need to have a content field. Everything you put in the content field would be the message. After linking the actions together, I now can reference the values that I want. Now that I have the payload set with the proper formatting for Discord, I can go ahead and re-emit the most recent event to test the output. Looks like it was a success, so we can go back to Discord and check. Here's the new message that we just received. Okay, once you have everything else set up the way you want, the last step to make this automated is to go to your topmost action, change from build to status, and add a schedule. Once you have this schedule set, this action will run on that schedule automatically, and when this runs, it'll proceed to output the events down the line. Alright, now you should have a good idea on how to set up your own YouTube subscription feed in Tines and be able to send this feed to wherever you would like. If you're interested in creating more projects and wanting to learn how to automate more cool things in Tines, be sure to like, subscribe, and check out my other posts.